Good morning everybody, it's Lisa here from Rocco Baby Crochet, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make these little pamper kits. So we've got some face scrubbies, a washcloth, a shower pouf, and this is nice timing for anybody who's watching in the US because I know it's coming up Mother's Day soon. We've already had it here, we've already had Mother's Day in the UK, but I know for anybody who's watching in the US that's coming up. So this is a lovely little homemade gift that you can, handmade gift that you can do for your mum or anybody special. So what you're going to need to make this little set is I've used a mix of bamboo and cotton, so it's the Style Craft. So I've got this lovely purple colour that is in lavender, and I've also got it in white. So you're going to need 2 of each of these. Now our friends over at the Wool Seller have done us another discount. So if you head over to my website roccobabycrochet.com, there's a link there to get your discount code, and there's also a link over to the Wool Seller shop as well. So as well as your yarns, you're going to need a 3mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, a darning needle. You're definitely going to need a couple of stitch markers for this little project, and then for the handle of this shower puff I use some cotton ribbon. So I've got quite a big reel of it here that I buy them off Amazon, but you can pick them up from a craft shop as well, and it's 10mm wide here, and you're going to need about 40 centimeters of it. So that's everything that you need to make this pamper kit. Like I say, it's a great little project for coming up to Mother's Day, great to sell at any craft fairs or on your Etsy shop. So let's get going. Don't forget, head over to the website if you want the discount on the yarns, and I'd love it if you could hit like and subscribe to my channel, and we can continue bringing you these free tutorials. So let's get into making this pamper kit for you. Okay, so to begin with, we're going to start off with these face scrubbies. So there's 3 stitches involved in making these. We use, and I'm using UK terminology, a double crochet, a puff stitch, and then we finish it off with a round of crab stitch. So the double crochet in US terminology is a single crochet, and I think the other 2 stitches are exactly the same. The puff stitch isn't a traditional puff stitch in that we've made it a little bit smaller so it fits around the round a little bit neater. So what you want to do is grab your hook, grab your yarn, and we're going to begin by making a magic ring. So I make my magic ring by taking my loose end of yarn and holding it on the back of my hands like that, and I make the letter X with it and then come back up, and then when I turn my hand over I've got 2 parallel lines. I pop my hook underneath the first one and grab on to the second, twist my hook upwards and grab back on to the strand of yarn which was at the back and pull that through. So what you want to make sure you do when you're working around a magic ring is you need to work into the magic ring, but this loose tail here, you also need to work around that, so when you pull it together everything pulls together nice and neatly. So I always just pull it and make it to a size that I find manageable to work around, and we're going to begin by popping 12 double crochets into this magic ring. Now if you want to pop a stitch marker in at this point and then you don't lose your first stitch, makes it a little bit easier. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So then when you pull on this loose end, it all pulls together. And what we want to do is, for row 2, just take your stitch marker out for a second, and you're going to slip stitch to that very first stitch that we put there. So insert your hook, pull through and pull through. Then you're going to chain 1. We're going to work our very first puff stitch into this space here where our chain's coming out of. So you want to yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert your hook into the same space and pull up a loop. Yarn over a third time, insert your hook and pull up a loop. So in total you'll have 7 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 7 loops and chain 1 to close it. And then you're going to move into your next stitch, so here, and you're going to work another puff stitch. So it's yarning over, inserting your hook, pulling up a loop, yarning over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over a third time, insert your hook, pull up a loop, 7 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 7 loops and chain 1. Now this, because we've got so many stitches, you will have just to keep pulling that a little bit until we tie it in at the end. So I'm going to move on to my third stitch, and I'm going to place another puff stitch, and you're going to place 1 puff stitch in every stitch around, and you're going to close them all with a chain 1. And you'll have a total of 12. So when you get to that point, if you hit pause, and when you get to that point, then come back to me and I'll show you how I finish off this row 2 of the face scrubby, and we'll move up onto row 3. Okay, so I've just got 1 puff stitch left to place. I just wanted to show you, this is my last stitch here, just so you could see where you was going as well. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, pulling up a loop 3 times. And that's my last puff stitch closed with a chain 1. And you're going to slip stitch to the top of your very first puff stitch, and you're going to chain 1. So into this first space here, and in every space, every stitch along, you're going to place a double crochet. So there's my first one, and then my second one's going to go into the top of the puff stitch, and then I'm going to place one in the chain 1 space, so in between the 2 puffs stitches and then one into the top of the puff stitch, one in the chain space, and you're just going to repeat that all the way around for round 3, and you will have a total of, when you finish this round, 24 double crochets. So if you hit pause and come back to me when you're back round here, and we'll go up and we'll work round 4. Okay, so I've just got 1 stitch left to work. My last stitch is going into the top of this puff stitch, and you can just, I don't know if you can see, there's just that 1 V left to work into there. So I'm going to place my last double crochet of round 3 in there, and then we're going to slip stitch to our first stitch, which is this one here. So this here is our chain 1, so we don't slip stitch into that, we slip stitch into this here, our very first stitch, then chain 1. So round 4, 1, 2, 3, round 4 is going to be another row of puff stitches. So what you're going to do is, into this first stitch here that your chain 1 is coming out of, that's where you're going to place your first one. 1, 2, you're making it in exactly the same way as you did in the previous rounds, and you're going to chain 1 to close it. Then you're going to move into your second stitch along, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, do that in total 3 times to form the puff stitch, yarn over, pull through all 7, oops, do that one again, So 1, 2, 3. I've got my 7 loops, yarn over, pull through all 7 loops on my hook, chain 1 to close, and you're going to do that in every stitch around, and at the end of this round you'll have a total of 24 puff stitches. So when you come in towards the, if you hit pause now and come back to me when you're round here, and we'll work our last one together and move up onto the next row. Okay, so I'm just ready to place my last puff stitch into the top of this stitch here. Chain 1 to finish that, and we're going to slip stitch to the first stitch of the round just to close the round off, and then you're going to chain 1, and we're just going to again work a double crochet into this stitch here that your chain 1 is coming out of, and then into the top of this puff stitch you're going to work a double crochet, and then into the chain space you're going to work a double crochet. So into the top of the puff stitch, into the chain space, and you're just going to do that all the way around, and in total you're going to have 48 double crochets. So if you want to hit pause until you come in towards the end of this round, and I'll meet you round once I've got my 48 double crochets as well. Okie dokie. So I'm just going to work my last double crochet into the top of that last puff stitch, and just going to slip stitch it to join it to the first double crochet that we made. So there we go. So for my face scrubbies, when I'm doing my packs, I do 2 with the white edge, and then 2 in the colour that I do the bath puff and that I do on the trim on my face cloth. So if you was going to stay and just do the plain white ones, you would just chain 1 at this point, and we're going to then work the crab stitch. So the crab stitch, all it is, it's a double crochet, but we're working it in reverse really. So instead of working this way to our left, we're going to be working this way to our right. So you would just insert your hook into the next stitch on the right, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through. So it's really simple. If you've not got a colour change, you just chain 1 and then start working the crab stitch. But I'm going to show you how I do the colour change and then how I work that in the purple. So let me just take that back out. So to finish off in the white, I'm just going to slip stitch and chain 1. Grab my scissors and pull up on that loop, and then I'll pull firmly on that to secure the knot, and then grab your colour that you're going to do your edging in. So I've got my lovely lavender. Now I never join it where I've tied it off because I don't want too many bumps there, so I usually just go a little round about here. So I make a slip knot in my colour choice and attach my hook. Just pick any double crochet to begin with, pop your hook through, pull up a loop and slip stitch it on, chain 1. And then what I do is I carry my ends around, so I work around all of these ends just so they're nice and secure. So let's work our first puff stitch. So remember, we're doing a double crochet in reverse, just let that focus. So I'm going into this stitch here, so I'm just going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops on my hook. Move across into the next stitch onto the right, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. Moving into the next stitch on the right and working another double crochet, and I just keep doing that all the way around. Oops. So just that's where my knot was from my last round. So now I'm going to be carrying across the white and the lavender underneath. If you're not comfortable doing that, you can sew them in at the end, but because I just prefer to do this because it just gives it a neater finish. So just do that all the way around, so you're working a double crochet in reverse, and when you've got 3 or 4 stitches left, come back to me and I'll show you how we tie this off, just so we get a lovely neat finish. So if you hit pause now and come back to me when you're about at this point here. Okay, so I've just got a couple of stitches left before I finish off, and I just wanted to show you how we do that, because it's a little bit different when we're working the crab stitch. So I do the crab stitch up into the point of where I've attached my yarn, and although there isn't an actual crab stitch into this stitch, I never work one into there, because if I do put one in there it ends up looking too bulky. So to finish the round, I slip stitch into where I've attached my yarn, and this is it can be a little bit tricky this, because your yarn is back to front to how it would normally be, but you just slip stitch in that into where you've attached your yarn, chain 1 and snip yourself off at end. So you want a fairly long end because we want to be tying it in, and then you pull on that chain 1 to knot it, and there you've got your face scrubby. So to tie in my yarn, when I'm working the crab stitch, because it naturally will go clockwise around, I'll sew in my ends, but I'll do it on the back side of my work. Ooh, I'm getting myself all confused. So I just run underneath these back bumps here of the crab stitch, and pull it through, and I'll just do about 3 passes like that. And I give them a little pull in between each one, just so they're not changing the shape or pulling on it out of the circle. And then there's my 3rd pass, so I'll leave that there, and you can see on the front then it doesn't change the shape of that border, and it looks really, really pretty. So chop that off, and then I'll just tie in my middle one, and then we'll move on to making the bath poof. So you just do this how you would normally do weave your ends in. So I'll let you do that. I need to trim those. They're the 2 ends that I carried over from joining it. But that's how we make our face scrubby. So you tie in the end in the middle just how you normally would, and then you want to grab your colour that you want to do your bath puff in, and also your cotton ribbon, and we'll do the bath puff next. Okay, so we're going to make the bath puff next, and what I'm going to do is I've got my cotton ribbon here. So this is about 40 centimetres of cotton ribbon, and I've got the lavender cotton bamboo mix that I'm using. And to begin with, what you're going to do is make a slip knot, and and we're going to start off and we're going to make a chain of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then you're going to slip stitch back to your very first chain. So insert your hook, pull up a loop and pull through, and that forms a little ring for you to work around. And into this ring we need to place 25 double crochets. So you're going to insert your hook into the center of that ring, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both. I carry around my loose end as well, so that's woven in. So that's 3, 4, pop your stitch marker in, so then you know where your first stitch is. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, because we're putting so many stitches, what you will need to keep doing is just pulling them round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I'll pull them around again. It is a tight squeeze, but they will all fit there, I promise you. 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. My little Rocco's here. Are you okay, Rocco? Oh. So we've just got 5 more to go. 1 second. Okay, so my little Rocco wanted a little bit of attention. So that's 21, 22, 23, scooch them round again, 24, and there's 25. Now what you want to do is pull them round again because we need enough room. So pull up a long loop there so you don't lose any of your stitches. Grab your cotton thread, and what you want to do is feed it through the centre of this ring, and you're going to tie a knot in between your last and your first stitch. So you want it to get it pretty much your ribbon measured equally, so one end's not longer than the other, and you just want to make sure that you've made enough room to keep those stitches pulled over so that you just tying a knot around the chain, the foundation chain, and not the actual stitches. So once you've done that and you've got your ribbon so it's pretty much central, you just tie in a double knot. It's a little bit fiddly, just take your time. And pull it tight once you've got it in the middle. And I just do it twice just to make sure. Okay, so then you can move on to round 2. So what you want to do, so round 2, and every round is the same from now on. Let me just find the end of my cotton. And all you're going to be doing is, I just want to show you how we get past this knot. you want to just push that to the back, just pretend it's not there for a minute, and into your first stitch here, pop out your stitch marker and slip stitch across to there. And you're going to just chain 3, and then into that's going to count as a treble crochet, so US double, and into that first stitch you're going to just place 2 more treble crochets. Into the next stitch along you're going to place 3 trebles, 1, 2 and 3, and into your next one you're going to place 3 more, and you're just going to do that in every stitch along for the whole of this row. And in total, including your chain 3, which for this one is going to count as treble, you're going to have a total of 75 stitches. So once you've got to that point, then come back to me and I'll just show you how we work up to round 2, and then the rest of the rounds are the same for this little part of our pamper box. Okay, so hit pause and come back to me when you finish this round. Okay, so I've just got 2 stitches left to work into, and you should notice that your work is all starting to ruffle up. That's exactly what we want. It's very fiddly this first round. Well, this is actually round 2, but once you get past this then it's a lot easier. 1, 2, and there's my third one into that last stitch, and then I'm just going to slip stitch to the top of my chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, which is here, and I'm just going to chain 3 to start row 3, and you're going to chain 3, you're going to do row 3, 4 and 5 exactly the same. You're just going to have an increase in number of stitches, but you're going to begin each round by chaining 3, and then into that first stitch you're going to place 2 treble crochets, and into every stitch along from that one you're going to place 3 treble crochets, and you're just going to do that all the way around. The same thing for the next 3 rows. So once you've completed those 3 rows, come back to me and I'll show you how we finish off the bath puff. Okie dokie. Okay, so I've worked all 5 rounds, and all I need to do now to finish this off is just slip stitch it to the top of my chain 3, chain 1, cut quite a decent amount because we want to make sure that we tie this end in, weave it in well, and there you have your bath poof. I think they're really cool, these. Okay, so next we just need to make, once you've tied in your ends, and you're just going to do that how you normally would do, we're just going to do the washcloth next. So if you grab your yarn that you want to make the washcloth with, so you're going to need both colours for that because we're going to be edging that as well. Okay, so see you in a second. Okay, so I've grabbed my white cotton bamboo mix, which I'm going to make my washcloth in, and to begin with you're going to make a slip knot, and then to start your washcloth what you want to do is you want to chain a total of 60. So you're going to yarn over and pull through to make a chain. So there's 4, 5, 6. So if you go ahead and make your 60 chains and press pause and come back to me when you've got your 60. Okay, so I've made my 60 chains, and the stitch that we're using to make this washcloth is known as the even moss stitch. So you're probably going to want to have 2 stitch markers handy, because the very first stitch and the very last stitch of each row is actually a slip stitch, and they can be a little bit harder to find than one of the larger stitches that we use. So to begin with, we want to work into the second chain from the hook. Now I always work into the back bumps, so that's 1, 2, and we're going to place a slip stitch in this second one here. So you insert your hook, pull through the yarn and pull through it again, and that's your slip stitch. Into the next stitch along, you're going to place a half treble crochet. Don't forget I'm using UK terminology, so that's a half double for anybody using American. Pop your stitch marker in that first slip stitch that you've done, just so you don't lose it, and then we're just going to do alternate stitches. So we're going to do a slip stitch and then another half treble into the next one along, slip stitch into the next, half treble into the next, slip stitch into the next, half treble into the next one, and you're just going to do that all the way along for row 1, and you're going to want to be ending on a slip stitch. So you go ahead and make your alternate stitches, and I'll meet you back when you get to the end. So if you press pause until you get to that point. Okay, so I'm at my last 2 stitches, so I've got 1 half treble and 1 slip stitch to work. I'm not going to show you every row of this because it's just a 1 row repeat, and I know that you'll get it because it's quite a nice easy pattern. So that's my last half treble, and I'm going to place my last slip stitch into the back bump of my first chain. So to move up to your next row, so you'll do this in every row, it's all identical. You're going to chain 1 and turn your work, and into the very first stitch, so where your chain 1 is coming out of, you're going to place your slip stitch. Try not to do that one too tightly, so you don't have problems working back into it when you coming back down. Pop your stitch marker in there so you can find it when you come back. And then you're just going to work again the alternate pattern. So you're going to be working half trebles into the top of your half trebles, and then you're going to be working a slip stitch into the slip stitch. So your stitch count will remain the same. You should have 59 stitches. So a half treble, then a slip stitch, my half treble, and then work my slip stitch into my slip stitch from below, half treble, and you're just going to do that all the way along. You'll end again on a slip stitch, so you're going to place that slip stitch into your last stitch, chain 1 and repeat it going the other way, and in total you need to do 84 rounds. So I'll let you get on with that and come back to me when you've completed your 84 rows. Okie dokie. Okay, so I've got my 84 rows, and I love this pattern. It's lovely for a washcloth. It's a nice texture. It creates these lovely little bumps, the even moss stitch. So to finish this washcloth off. So I've just finished my 84th round. I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work, and what we want to do is just work 1 double crochet into each stitch along the top. So you'll have 59 going across the top, so you're working a double crochet every stitch along for 59 stitches. And if you hit pause until you get to your corner, and then I'll show you how we go around the corner. Okie dokie. Okay, so I've come to my corner, so I'm just going to take my stitch marker out of there. And to go around the corner, what we're going to do is just place 3 double crochets into this corner stitch here. So that's 1, 2, and then I turn it and I put my 3rd one in to the same stitch. And then down this side, what you want to do is just evenly place your double crochets all the way down. So I usually just go where there's a natural little gap. There's no rule of thumb. Normally we would say sort of 1 stitch per row, but because we're finishing and ending on a slip stitch, sometimes that can be a little bit difficult to get them in, so you just have to work it as evenly down as you can. Working 1 double crochet all the way along until you get to your corner, and then when you get to your corner you're going to be placing 3 double crochets into that corner stitch, and then working a double crochet all the way back along your chain. And then 3 double crochets into your 3rd corner stitch, and then work your way back up, and I'll meet you at your last corner because your last corner is a little bit different. Okay, so just take your time, make sure that you get those evenly spaced. If you start to put them too close together or too far apart, then it's going to make your work ripple. So I always just keep an eye on it as I'm going along, that it's still sitting flat against my desk. Okay, so once you've worked all the way around in single crochet, come back to me, we'll finish that last corner off, and then we'll do the edging. Okay, so I have come back up to my very last corner, and remembering that we've already placed 1 stitch into this one, so all we need to do now is just place 2, because we've already placed the first one. So just going into that last space and placing our last 2 double crochets, and then slip stitch it to the first one that we did, chain 1, cut off your yarn, pull through that loop and pull down on that knot to just tie it in place. And then what you want to do is grab the colour that you're going to be doing your edging in. So this is what you should have so far, so it should still be lying flat and not curling up or anything in any of the places. Okie doke. just need to cut that strand of yarn there. Okay, so this is where I've tied off my work. I've just turned it over just because I want this side to be my front side. Just see if you've got any preferred side. They should both be the same, it's just that I had to join two balls of yarn together, so this is my prettier side, just by a smidgen. Okay, so you want to just insert your hook just before this corner here, underneath your double crochet, and slip stitch your border colour on and chain one. And all we're going to be doing is, let me just zoom in on this a little bit, all we're going to be doing is working a crab stitch all the way around, just so it matches our face cloths. So again, we're going to be carrying our face scrubbies. So again, we're going to be carrying the loose ends around, so you're going to be working to the right instead of to the left, and placing one double crochet in each stitch around. So when you get to the corners, you're still going to be only placing one into each one. And then that's where we've joined it. Oops, I'll just take that one back. It can be a little bit more tricky to get it through the stitch where you've attached the yarn, where you fastened off the yarn from the row before. So you want to just go in before that knot and place a crab stitch, and then turn your work, and then you're going into the stitch after the knot and placing a crab stitch, and then one crab stitch all the way down, and you're just going to do that all the way round, one reverse double crochet in every stitch. And when you come in towards the end of that, then come back to me and I'll show you how we just tie this off. Okie dokie, so if you hit pause for now while you work your way around. Okay, so I'm at my last two stitches. Place my last two crab stitches, and then where I've joined my purple, I'm just going to slip stitch into there. It's just exactly the same as we did the face scrubby. Now it is difficult to get that slip stitch on your last stitch, just because the yarn's working back to front, so usually I find it easy just to go through the back of the loop, chain one. I've lost my scissors. There they are. Cut a nice long end because you want to tie this in and make sure it's lovely and secure. So I just turn it over, thread my darning needle, and I'm just weaving through the back of these crab stitch loops here. So I'm going to take it around the corner. Pulling out my yarn so it's not pulling my corner up, and then go down this back side here, because you want to make sure that you thread these ends quite a long way, because obviously they're going to get a lot of use, these, and they're going to be washed, and then go back up. and then I'm gonna go back down. Can you tell what my favourite colour is? It's purple. Right, so there's that. Cut your end off. Give it a little pull just to make sure it's not changing the shape. And there you have it, one beautiful washcloth. So let's just have a look at this. Which way do I go? That way. Look at all my mess. So there's our washcloth. We've got our scrubbies, and we've got our bath puff. So there's only one thing left to do. I am going to go and have a nice long soak in the bath. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you have. If you make anything at all from any of my tutorials, then I'd love to see them over on the Rocco Baby Crochet Facebook page. And I will see you next weekend for another tutorial. Take care everybody, bye bye.